So welcome to session number 8, in which we will continue with the module 1, and we are discussing stress and strain in different materials. So in the previous section you have seen about the stresses and strain due to temperature variation on the materials, and until now you have seen about the normal stresses and normal strain. That means the force were acting perpendicular to the area on which the force were applied. They are called as normal stresses or normal strain. In this session we will discuss about what is called as shear stress and shear strain. So unlike normal stress and normal strain, as the name indicates, shear stress, so this stress or this load, shear loads, will try to cut the materials perpendicular to the axis of the materials. So you have seen earlier that shear stress or shear load is applied perpendicular to the axis of the member or the component. So there we will see that in this session we will look at the concepts of shear stress and shear strain. So to understand shear stress, first let us take a cubical element and assume that the base or the bottom is fixed, and you apply the load shear force. So this is the shear force. So the nature of the shear force is that it is acting perpendicular to the axis of the element. You can see here, and the force will be acting parallel to the surface of the object or component. Whereas if you take the normal or what is called as tensile or compressive force, they will be acting perpendicular to the area on which they are applied. So the normal force or the force which is acting perpendicular to the surface area, it produces normal stress. Similarly, this force which is acting along the surface of the element or along the surface of the component, this force is called as the shear force. So this force now which is acting parallel to the surface of the element, it causes distortion or bending of this particular component. So this is the initial element here. When you apply the shear force, and in the bottom face, since it is fixed, there will be reactional force, shear force in the opposite direction. So if you apply shear force in this direction on this face, in the bottom face there will be reactional force, shear force acting on the bottom face, so to maintain equilibrium there. So here when you apply the shear force on this surface, so it produces distortion or displacement of the element here with respect to x-axis and y-axis. So since the object is fixed here at the bottom, what happens is this face, the face AB, CD, this is initial phase. When you apply the shear force, what happens is the point A will experience strain, or it will get displaced to point A dash. So A will move from here to A dash. So this is the displacement because of this shear force. Similarly, the other end, that is the point B, which is here, initially it was here, when the load was applied, it will shift or it will move, it will displace from B to B dash. So this, when we apply the shear force, this is the change in shape of this element here. So this was the initial, ABCD was the initial position of the object or the element, and when the load is applied, the shape will get changed like this, it will change like this, and the points A and B will move from A to A dash, and B will move from B to B dash. Similarly, at the back, D will move from D to D dash. This should be D, and this is D dash. Similarly, the point C, which was here, it will move to C dash here. So you are applying the force, the shear force on the surface, parallel to the surface, and if you are applying it on the right hand side, So this causes what is called as a rotating, it causes the rotation of the object or the moment. So this is the positive moment. So shear forces will cause moments or turning moments which causes the rotation of the object. So when the shear force is applied to the right hand side, it causes clockwise rotation of the object, and that is taken as, we take it as positive shear force. Similarly, in this diagram you can see we have the same element here, and when you apply the shear force on the left hand side, towards the left hand side, in the bottom face the reaction force will be in the right hand side. So because of this shear force, the object will rotate in the anti-clockwise direction. You can see here A has moved from here to A dash. So it is opposite of this diagram because the forces are acting in opposite other directions. So when the body rotates because of the shear force in the anti-clockwise direction, we take it as negative shear. So this is only the convention here, but anyway, because of this shear force which is acting on this area, so this is the shear area. This is the A dash, B dash, C dash, D dash is the shear area, and this is the shear force. So then when the load is applied on this area, it will become the stress. So since we are applying shear force, we get the shear stress here. So shear stress is designated by the symbol tau, whereas sigma is for normal stress when the load is acting perpendicular to the area. Now the shear force is acting parallel to the area, so that is called as shear stress. So shear stress symbol is tau, whereas normal stress, tensile or compressive, that will be sigma. So here one more thing you have to observe here is that when you apply the shear force, because of this turning moment, the element will get distorted in this manner, and you can see here A will move to A dash with respect to point D. So this causes dA will distort or will undergo displacement to dA dash. So we get an angle here which is given as phi here. So this angle is called as the shear strain. So this force induces shear stress in this element. So shear stress is shear force by shear area, this area, A dash, B dash, C dash, D dash. Similarly, when the load is applied, there will be stress and strain. So in this case, it is shear force. So this shear force causes shear stress, and because of the shear stress, there will be shear strain. So this angle, the displacement of dA to dA dash, you can see here dA to dA dash, it is nothing but the shear strain phi. So we will take the angle of this tan theta. So here you can see tan phi is called as the shear strain. So shear strain is nothing but phi or tan phi. So it's nothing but tan phi is nothing but opposite by hypotenuse. Opposite by adjacent. So opposite is A dash and adjacent is AD. So this tan of this phi angle, this angle is called as shear strain. So we have the shear strain and the shear stress because of this shear force. So just like the modulus of elasticity, which relates the normal stress and normal strain, similarly the shear stress and shear strain will give one more modulus of elasticity, that is we call this as modulus of rigidity. So the normal stress will give rise to modulus of elasticity, whereas shear stress and shear strain or shear force will give rise to modulus of rigidity. So the G is the constant here, proportionality constant for shear stress and shear strain. So just like Hooke's law, we can apply in the elastic limit, the shear stress will be proportional to shear strain. So shear stress is proportional to shear strain, and if you remove the constant of, if you want to remove the proportionality here, so you will apply the constant of proportionality G. So G is called as the modulus of rigidity, or simply rigidity modulus or shear modulus. So this constant of proportionality is given by G. So G is called as modulus of rigidity, just like Young's modulus for the normal stresses. Therefore, for shear stresses and strain, we have modulus of rigidity. So tau is equal to G into shear strain. So shear stress is equal to G into shear strain. Or if you want, we can say it as shear stress by shear strain is equal to modulus of rigidity, or G, or shear modulus. So we'll see one simple application where the shear force will be applied. So here we have a bolt. This is a bolt here, and a nut is applied here, and we know that nuts and bolts are used to fasten the two sheets or two plates here. So we have the two plates. This is one plate and plate here, and in these two plates hole is drilled, and we put the bolt here and nut is tightened here to hold these two plates or sheets. So in this case, when the bolt and nut is fastened to the two plates, and there will be forces acting on these two plates, and that force is the shear force. So if you take the nature of this force with respect to the bolt here, which is nothing but the diameter of the bolt, it is circular. The bolt will be circular in cross section. So this, when you apply the shear loads, when the load is acting on these two plates, this load will exert shear load on this cross section of this bolt here. So this bolt will be under, it will be experiencing the shear force. So if you take the cross section of the bolt here, the load will be acting perpendicular to the axis of the bolt here. So the axis of the bolt is here vertical, and the load is acting perpendicular to the axis of this bolt. So now we can say that this force is the shear force. This force is shear force, and this is the cross section of the bolt, and the force is acting parallel to the area. So that is called as the shear force. So the force is acting parallel to the cross section of the bolt, right? So here we have this problem here. So this is the top view which is given here. So top view is given, and you can see the plates. The width of the plate is 50 mm, and this is the hole in which the bolt is inserted. Bolt and nuts are inserted, and in this problem he has given the thickness of the plates is given here, and diameter of the bolt is given 20 millimeter. So this is the diameter of the bolt. So the bolt is there, it is cross section is circular, and diameter is given as 20 mm. So the shear force is acting along the cross section of the bolt, and they are given factor of safety 3, and the strength of this material of the bolt. So this bolt is having is made up of some material, and that material is having ultimate shear strength of 460 Newton per meter square. So here we have to find out the load, which we have to find out this load, shear load on the plates, so that the bolt can take this shear stress, or the bolt can hold this shear load without failure. So because of this shear force, there will be shear stress induced in this bolt here, and the bolt is having ultimate shear strength of 460 megapascal. So the shear stress induced in the bolt should be less than 460 megapascal when you are applying some load P here. So you should find out how much load P you can apply so that the shear stress in the bolt is less than 460 megapascal. So here in the solution, we will first write down the shear strength. So just like ultimate strength in tensile, similarly the metal will be having ultimate shear strength, and it is given 460 megapascal. So, and the factor of safety is given here 3. So we told that when the factor of safety is given and the ultimate strength of the metal is given, so we have to use the design stress or allowable stress. So when the factor of safety is given and ultimate strength is given, we can calculate the allowable shear stress. So usually we don't design the material for maximum strength of the material. We reduce the strength of the material by some factor called as factor of safety. So in this case it is 3. So you have to reduce this strength of the material by 3, divided by 3, and we will get it as 153 megapascal. So this is the allowable shear stress or the design shear stress which is applied on this bolt here. So the actual strength of the material of the bolt is 460 megapascal, but we are reducing it to dividing it by 3, factor of safety, and we are reducing it to 153 megapascal. So whenever we design, that means the load what we apply, that should create a shear stress of 153 megapascal in this material here. So that is called as allowable shear stress or design shear stress. So the allowable shear stress in this bolt is now 153 megapascal. Even though the strength of the material is 460, but we are applying only, or we are trying to induce only 153 megapascal shear stress in this material. So when the shear stress is so much in this material, what will be the shear load that we have to find out. So here, once you know the shear stress, so this is the shear stress applied on the bolt, we can easily calculate the load here, shear force or shear load. So before that, we will calculate the area, bolt area. So the cross-sectional area of this bolt is pi by 4 d square, because the cross-section is circular and the diameter of the bolt is 20. So we can calculate the shear area of the bolt. It is pi by 4 d square. So this is the pi by 4 d square area. So we have the shear stress and shear area. So you can easily calculate the shear load. So shear stress is nothing but shear load by shear area. So since shear stress is given and area is given, you can calculate the shear load here. So shear load is nothing but shear stress into shear area. So shear stress is this much, and the area you just now you calculated. So if you substitute that, you will get 48.2 kilonewton or newtons here. So since shear stress is taken in megapascal, we take it in Newton per meter square, 10 power of 6 Newton per meter square. Area you take it in meter square again or millimeter square. So you take the units uniformly. So here you can take the stress as 153.3 Newton per millimeter square, because megapascal is Newton per millimeter square. Keep it as it is. And area also you take it in millimeter square. So if you do that, you will get it as 48.2 kilonewtons here. So one thing you got to understand, that normal stress sigma is, I told you, which is based on the area perpendicular to the surface on which the force is acting. So the force is acting perpendicular to the surface of the element or the material, while the shear force is acting parallel to the surface of the element or the material. So that's why normal. That's why the stress is called as normal stress, because the force is acting perpendicular to the surface. So it is called as normal stress. When the force is acting parallel to the surface, that is called as shear force. So that area shear, because of the shear force, that is the stress will be developed, and that is called as shear stress. And shear stress, it is, it is because of the shear force which is acting perpendicular to the axis of the object or material, and it is also called as tangential stress. So tangential means perpendicular to the axis of the component. So shear stress is also called as tangential stress, whereas the stresses due to normal loads, they are called as normal stress. So normal stress and shear stress or tangential stress, you should keep in mind. And normal stress can be tensile or compressive. Normal means which is acting parallel, which is acting along the axis or perpendicular to the surface cross section. So it can be tensile or it can be compressive. And also shear stress can be positive or negative, that is, it depends upon in which direction it is acting. If the shear stress or shear force causes turning in the positive direction, in the clockwise direction, it is called as positive shear stress. If the shear stress is acting which causes the turning of the object in the anti-clockwise direction, it is called as negative shear stress. Normal stress is positive when the load is tensile. So normal stress is negative when the load is compressive. So shear stress, if it is acting right hand side, if it causes clockwise rotation of the object, we call this as positive shear stress. And if the shear stress causes rotation of the object in the anti-clockwise direction, we call that as negative shear stress. So normal shear stress is positive or negative. Similarly, shear stress is negative or positive. So normal stresses will be positive for tensile load, and if the load is compressive, we call it as negative normal stress. So similarly, we have one more strain here. So until now we have seen the strain only in one direction, that is a linear strain, and also we have looked at strain in other directions y and z, and we calculated the Poisson's ratio. So similarly, the strain, sometimes the load is applied in all directions and it causes the strain in the volume of the material. So the whole body will be under strain. So that strain is called as volumetric strain. So when you apply load in 3 dimensions, 3 mutually perpendicular directions, which is equal in direction, which is equal in quantity, so what happens is there will be change in volume. So directly we can apply the formula for strain. So formula for strain is change in length by original length for linear strain. If it is volumetric strain, so it is simply change in volume by original volume. So volumetric strain, as the name indicates, volume change. So that is nothing but change in volume to the original volume. So here you can see linear strain is strain that is change in length by original length in one direction. So change in volume you take in all the directions, cube of that minus original direction, that give 3 times of change in length, square of that. So if you take that, change in volumetric strain will be equal to 3 times the change in or what is called as linear strain, change in the length. So linear strain is nothing but change in one direction, change in the length in one direction. Volumetric strain means change in the lengths in all the directions, that is x-axis, y-axis and z-axis. So it is found that volumetric strain epsilon v is equal to 3 times volumetric, 3 times the axial strain or linear strain or the strain in one directions. So you can say that volumetric strain is 3 times the linear strain. Linear strain means strain in one direction, x or y or z. Volumetric strain means it is the change in all directions simultaneously. So with respect to this, when you apply loads in all the 3 directions, so it causes volumetric strain. So that ratio is called as bulk modulus. So we have one more modulus, what called as bulk modulus. Just like modulus of elasticity, modulus of rigidity, we have one more modulus called as bulk modulus. So what is bulk modulus? Bulk modulus is nothing but the stress or the normal stress acting on the body in all the directions, three directions, divided by the volumetric strain. That is nothing but the bulk modulus. So bulk means volume. So that change in volume of that material, because of these stresses which is applied in all the directions of the body, that causes volumetric strain, and that ratio stress by strain is called as the bulk modulus. So always remember that modulus of elasticity, modulus of rigidity, and the bulk modulus, they are simply the ratio of stress and strain. So modulus of elasticity is normal stress by normal strain. Rigidity modulus is shear stress by shear strain, and this modulus, bulk modulus, is the stresses, or what is called as three-dimensional stresses, which are acting in all the directions of the body to the strain, that is volumetric strain, change in the volume. That is called as bulk modulus. So you can see here, all these are called as elastic constants of the material. So Young's modulus, rigidity modulus, Poisson's ratio, and the bulk modulus, they are called as elastic constants of the material. And epsilon V is for volumetric strain. Epsilon is for strain, V is for volume. And volumetric strain is 3 times the linear strain. So you have to understand one more thing, that a small derivation is there where we will establish relationship between Young's modulus, rigidity modulus, and the Poisson's ratio. So we take the Young's modulus, rigidity modulus, that is shear stress and shear strain, along with the Poisson's ratio. So you just go through the diagram here, and if you apply mathematical relationships here, we will get what is called as the relationship between Young's modulus and the rigidity modulus with respect to Poisson's ratio. So after derivation, we will get this Young's modulus is equal to 2g 1 plus nu. 1 plus nu is the Poisson's ratio. Similarly, you can get the relationship between Young's modulus, bulk modulus, and Poisson's ratio. So here bulk modulus, as I told you, we take the material or the element, and the stresses are applied in 3 mutually perpendicular directions. So when you apply stresses in all the directions equally, there will be volumetric strain or change in volume. So that is bulk modulus. So bulk modulus is the stresses in all directions, that is perpendicular directions, stresses in 3 mutually perpendicular directions divided by the volumetric strain, that will give the bulk modulus K. So you can get the relationship between E, K, and nu. So when you derive that, it's a small derivation is there. When you do that, you will get this equation. So E is equal to 3K 1 minus 2 nu. Similarly, once we know these two equations with respect to E and G, and with respect to E and K, now I can relate all the 3 constants E, G, K. So using those 2 equations, you just combine those 2 equations and simplify it, and you can express the equation in terms of E, G, and K. So this is the relationship between E, G, and K. So just remember these equations in the problems. We can use them to get the unknown values. So this completes the concepts of in the first module of stress and strain. So we will just before we wrap up this module 1, we will just understand, or we'll just summarize a few important things in module 1. So in the first module, basic concept is stress and strain. So stress is nothing but the strength. So stress is whenever you apply load on the material will resist that load, and that resistance will be based on the area on which the load is applied. So the stress we can define it as the resistance of the material to the applied load over the area. So that is what is called as stress. And strength is nothing but the capacity or the maximum stress which the maximum load which the material can resist. That maximum capacity we write it in terms of strength. So strength and stress are almost same. So strength represents the maximum capacity, and whereas the stress represents it depends on how much load you are applying, and strength represents what is the maximum load on the material. So stress is nothing but force by area, and stiffness is again you can say that in simple words, stiffness is a measure of or stiffness can be measured by modulus of elasticity. So modulus of elasticity, it will give the value of stiffness. And stability is again is related to the how stiff the metal is with respect to its geometry dimensions. So usually we take stiffness with respect to buckling or twisting or wrapping or elongation, whereas stability is with respect to the geometry of the cross-sectional dimensions of the material. And coming to stress, normal stress or simple stress or direct stress, I told you whenever you apply load on the material will resist or will oppose that load over the area, cross-sectional area. That ratio is called as simply stress, or since the load is normal to the area, we call it as normal stress or direct stress or simply simple stresses. Similarly, strain, whenever you apply load on the material, there will be strain. That means strain represents the elongation or shortening of the bar or the material when the load is applied. So that ratio, change in length by original length, is called as strain. And Hooke's law we saw, it is very simple. Stress is proportional to strain in the elastic limit of the material. And modulus of elasticity is again by the Hooke's law, it is a constant of proportionality with respect to normal stress and normal strain. And yield strength is, I told you that when the load is applied in the material until certain limit, there will be elastic deformation, and when the load exceeds that elastic limit or yield load, the metal will undergo plastic deformation. So that limit where the load or the stress which causes only elastic deformation, and after that which causes plastic deformation, that limit, that load or that stress is called as yield stress or yield strength of the material. Similarly, ductility we saw, which is the amount of plastic deformation in the material. And again, just like yield strength, we have maximum strength or ultimate tensile strength when the load is applied, tensile load is applied. So you can have ultimate stress or ultimate strength of the material when the tensile load or compressive load is applied. And coming to proof stress, we saw that in some cases where the yield point is not clear in the stress strain diagram, so we take 0.2% yield stress, and we saw how to calculate 0.2% yield stress or yield strength in the materials where the stress strain diagram is not indicated. In the stress strain diagram, the point of the yield point is not indicated clearly. So particularly in non-ferrous materials, we have seen that. And one more important thing is factor of safety. So I told you that we don't actually use the maximum strength of the materials. We reduce that strength of the materials by factor of safety, and we get the applicable stress or allowable stress or design stress on the material. And percentage elongation, so when you apply tensile load, the metal will elongate, and how much it is elongating, that is the change in length by the original length into 100, that will give percentage elongation. So again, when you take only the strain in one direction, there will be reduction in area when the tensile load is applied. So that percentage is nothing but change in area in the cross section divided by the original area. So this is area here, not length. So it is original area, cross sectional area into 100. So again, we saw about ductile and brittle materials based on how much elongation the metal will undergo. So if the metal undergoes small amount of, depending on the load, when the metal undergoes small amount of deformation, those metals are called as brittle materials. So in brittle materials there is no necking, whereas in ductile materials, when the load increases, they undergo a large amount of partial deformation, and there will be necking at the some part of the cross section. And we learnt about Poisson's ratio. So whenever load is applied, there will be strain along the axis, linear strain. At the same time, there will be lateral strain or the change in dimension in y-axis and z-axis. So that is called as lateral strain. So the ratio of lateral strain by linear strain or longitudinal strain is called as Poisson's ratio. So lateral strain is our perpendicular strain, or linear strain or longitudinal strain. That ratio is Poisson's ratio. So again we saw about tapering bars. So in straight bars we can apply the change in length PL by AE. If the bars are tapering and if it is circular cross section, it is 4 PL by pi E D1 D2. Similarly, if the tapering bar is having cross section, rectangular cross section, you have to use thickness and breadth at the two ends. And also we saw the elongation due to self weight. It is 2 times, you have to divide it by 2 PL by AE, with you have to add 2 in the denominator here. So P is, in this case, it will be the weight of the material. Otherwise, if load is applied, you put external load P here. So the elongation of the bar is PL by AE. Because of the self weight, it will become W by 2. So P will become W by 2. So that much you have to understand here. And at the end, we saw about composite bars, where we have seen some conditions in the composite bar. The elongation will be same for both the materials. So when the elongation is same, the stresses developed in the different materials of the composite bar will be different, because the modulus of elasticity will be different for different materials. So based on that, we have to use this equation to calculate the load or stresses in both the materials of the composite bar. Similarly, we saw about thermal expansion. So this is the formula for free thermal expansion in the bar, and whenever the temperature rises, you can calculate the strain in the bar, depending on the coefficient of thermal expansion, change in length by original length, and you can calculate the stresses due to temperature by using this formula. So this is about the first module, what we learnt in all the previous sessions. So keep in mind that normal stresses are because of the loads which are acting perpendicular or normal to the surface area of the material, whereas shear stresses, it is because of the shear forces acting parallel to the surface area. That's why the shear stresses are called as tangential stresses. And also just now we saw about the shear stress and the shear strain. That ratio is nothing but the shear modulus or modulus of rigidity, that G. So just like Young's modulus, normal stress by normal strain, similarly we have modulus of rigidity G, shear stress by shear strain. So here we have the tangential stress or shear stress. Just now we talked about that. And volumetric strain, it's a change in volume to the original volume, and that we discussed earlier. And we established the relationship between E and G with respect to Poisson's ratio, and we derived an equation with respect to relationship between Young's modulus and bulk modulus with respect to Poisson's ratio. And using these two equations, we'll get one more equation which relates the relationship between Young's modulus, rigidity modulus and the bulk modulus. So just remember these equations, and based on these equations you can apply these equations to calculate the stresses and strain in different materials which are subjected to different kinds of loading, normal, that is maybe tensile load, compressive load, or shear loads. So based on these three loads, you can calculate normal stresses and shear stresses, and normal strain and shear strain in the components. And all the materials that are used to make machine components or mechanical components or civil structures, and they all carry, they are all subjected to different loads, normal loads or maybe shear loads, something like that. So based on that, we calculate the stresses in the material when the load is applied on them, and we should see that the stresses developed in the material because of the external applied load should be less than the strength of that materials while designing or while applying those materials for different applications. So thank you. That's it for this session. Thank you.